This is Cadillac Unscripted on 107.9 CDY. We talk about local things going on in and around the Cadillac area community, and we've been doing it for almost 4.5 years on Saturday mornings at 8:30. Katie Huckle is my co-host, and we're sponsored by Independent Bank. And we've got a first-time guest this time, and I don't know how we have not had Chris Gentry on with us before.
I know it. It's a name that so many people know because of Chris's work in the community. But yes, he is the executive director of the Cadillac Area Land Conservancy, also known as CALC. Welcome, Chris.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I've been keeping my head low, keeping my head down, I should say. So it's nice to be here. Thank you.
We were joking right before we started recording the show that you say you're either part-time employed or part-time retired based on the day.
Right.
When did you come aboard as executive director?
I started in, the very end of 2020. But really 2021. So it's been a few years, but it is a part-time position. So I have to work to keep it that way because we've got some great stuff going on and lots of great people we work with. But right now it is for 25 years of our existence. We were a volunteer organization and the organization got the financial wherewithal to hire part-time staff, myself and an office person about that time. And so we came on board and tried to help keep the ship afloat going forward. So it's been great.
Yeah, you've got an upcoming event that you'd like to invite the community to.
Sure.
I understand it's on June 8th. Can you tell us what's happening?
You bet. We have 4 preserves that we have within the CALC organization, one of which is Waldeck Island on Stone Ledge Lake, which was George Rock's old property. And that was one of the first, if not the first. I'm a little unclear on that history, being a relative newbie. But we have done a project with the DNR through a grant program to connect the wetland to Stone Ledge Lake. So what used to be called Swede Lake is a wetland. It was separated from the lake for many years with an artificial berm with a culvert. The culvert had failed, and when the water's up, was still no transfer of aquatic fish habitat type things. So we got a grant from the fisheries program of DNR to take the berm out, which meant we wouldn't have access to most of our preserve, and the grant helped cover installation of a very nice wooden bridge walkway. So we got that done at the end of last year, and we're just going to celebrate the fact that we've restored the lake ecosystem and we've improved access to Waldeck Island. So it kind of keeps with what George wanted with that property and improves access for people and improves wildlife habitat along the way. So it's been a great project. We had DNR financial support through the grant, as well as a number of donors, individuals from our board and other volunteer supporters, and a little bit from the George Rock Endowment that we have with Cadillac Area Community Foundation. So it was fun to put that together, and we're just happy to share it with the folks. So that's coming up June 8th at, 10 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cadillac Chamber is going to be there with the ambassadors to do a ribbon cutting, and there'll be a few games and activities along with it. So the board's real excited about putting on the event. We're going to have a good time that morning.
Rich, how many times have you driven on 115 by Stone Ledge Lake?
And never knew that there was an island on Stone Ledge Lake?
Correct.
Never.
Well, I knew there was an island. I didn't know it was named Waldeck Island. See,
I didn't either.
This is why we need
now
to
you're going to
learn
ask me, what's that name come from? And I don't know.
Oh, I wasn't planning on asking you that because I wasn't sure if you knew or not. But no, I mean, and I've been on Stone Ledge Lake a couple of times, but never knew this until today.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because of that preserve in George's foresight, Stone Ledge Lake is not developed all the way around. So if you were on the lake or if you had a property on the lake, all year long you're looking across the lake to an undeveloped piece of property. That's really beautiful. Fall, when the colors come out, it's crazy nice. And the birding, and there's eagles and ospreys that go through there, and it's just a wonderful dedication to public enjoyment and the natural world that George foresaw. His old farm, by the way, is one of our is not ours, but it has a conservation easement on the rest of his property, the farm part of his property, and so he wanted to preserve that for posterity. And it was George Rock was one that's helped started the Conservancy back in 1995 or however long before that. And it's good to have people with that kind of a love and foresight and dedication to community, and we've been caretakers ever since.
Visionary. He was.
Yep.
And George and Vicky stayed active in the community.
Yeah.
Way, way, way beyond what most people do.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And we're just so engaged, and it was always nice to sit next to them and catch up, and they were really interesting, and like you say, committed to the community.
Yeah. He, I was at Kettnan Center prior to all this, and I found out he was real involved there. And financially supported it and did some things and created one of the funds that kept that place going when it was open. And so it was amazing. His interests were varied widely. So, yeah, George was a cool guy. Mm-hmm. I came into the community. He was older at the time and knew him through Rotary and stuff like that. But really nice guy. Although very particular, the stories I heard of the early days of the Cadillac Area Community Foundation, he kept us on task.
Right.
So,
and you have to have those taskmasters to uphold your bylaws and stay on all that. Yeah. Awesome. Can you tell us about what other properties, because I don't think our listeners know, I know Rich and I wouldn't know all of them, what other tracts of land and property are in the Conservancy?
Yeah, it's Cadillac Area Community or Conservancy started in Wexford County, in Cadillac, hence the name. Okay. George Rock and then Tom Rensbury were the two instigated the whole thing. George had 160 acres where he lived, and then the preserved property, and Tom had 250 acres, I think, over on in Cherry Grove Township, and they wanted to preserve that land, and so they were able to start it. And so, but since then, the Cadillac area name is a little bit of a misnomer. We're really a regional organization because we have a area of Michigan that we cover for land conservancy purposes, if that's the right phrase. That includes Missaukee County, Wexford County, Osceola County, and then the northern half of Lake County and Mason County. We have and our organization works primarily with private landowners who want to preserve the conservation values on their property forever. Whether it be a farm that has a family heritage to it, or somebody that has hunting land that's been in the family for a long time and they want to keep it that way or keep it natural. Any number of motivations go into it. But right now we have about 25 landowners we work with to maintain conservation easements on their property to preserve the natural values going forward. An easement is basically a gift of property rights, certain property rights, to an organization, in this case us, that preserves certain conservation values that our organization has as part of our mission. That could be wildlife habitat, scenic views, farmland, wooded areas, protecting wetlands and watersheds, which is a big part of maintaining water quality, and then also preserving open spaces that is important both from all these things I mentioned so far, but helps with climate change issues and population pressures by having open space that can be preserved for forever. And it all helps with the quality of life for all of us that live in this area. Helps keep the way of life that we enjoy, even with the population growth that we're seeing a little bit and should expand going forward. We're hoping to have an impact long term forever. I mean, it's a long visioned type of mission that is engaged in. Our job is to we take on an easement. The owner gives us certain property rights, and our commitment is we're going to maintain that forever, which is scary. I mean, you sit here going, wow, that's a long time.
A big responsibility.
Yeah, so it's an easement is a legal agreement between us and a landowner at this point. And it really is designed to be perpetual, and it's codified in government regulations and laws and things like that force us to do it. I mean, even if we wanted to sell Wildeck Island, George had an easement on that, and nope, you can't do it. So, but don't tell somebody that might be complaining to me about too many people over there, because I might threaten to do it just to get them off my back. But and if you live on Stone Ledge Lake, you didn't hear me say that. Anyway, it's an awesome mission, an awesome responsibility, and we work hard on that every day for to maintain it. But so, all told, right now, as we sit here, we have about 2,600 acres protected through easements and whatnot. We have conversations that are serious going on that could push us up 500 or 1,000 acres more, depending on how these all come up. There's always something churning, and that's really, for me, that's what's fun about the job. You get to envision what might happen and have fun talking to people and helping make an owner's vision of a property real. And I'm hoping sometime this year we'll have time to come back here and talk about it.
He's got something cooking, Rich.
And even a landowner who is gone, who has a family that wants that to be honored. That's a big responsibility.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, there's a lot of that. We've had two fairly large easements just recently have the original owners pass away, and then the families moved in, and each time you get a new person that owns the land, there's various questions and things you got to work out with. So far, everybody's been real supportive of the easements, but somebody, if you buy a piece of land, you don't know, necessarily. The easement does follow the deed, so any realtor that is selling this or whatever has to share that information because it's recorded. It's part of the legal stuff. So there can be some misunderstandings, and we've had some unrelated people that have bought property that had taken a little bit of positive engagement with to make sure that we're all on the same page with this stuff. In fact, Tom Rensberry's original property is sold, and we've worked several times with owners to work things out and understand there are certain conditions that amendments can be made, and we've been able to do that a few times. So it's things like that. There's just a lot of that going on, and we're at that point with some of our original easements where we do have landowner transfers and family transfers. So that's part of the job too, and even staff and volunteer transfers. So our board's undergoing folks that have aged out and new people coming in, and we all got to reconnect and re-engage and all that. So it's kind of fun that way, and it's part of the charge of keeping things rolling through the generations. But it's really neat to help a family protect a family heritage of a piece of property that has been so meaningful to them. Sometimes it might be an elder that doesn't want the family to mess it up, but, but it's all the dynamics is different, and each conversation is unique. I said there's 25 easements. Every one of them has something different from another one for whatever reason. So but the conservation values that we protect are fairly consistent. Each piece of property might have different values, but they're generally the same environmental types of issues.
So I was going to ask you, because you have a lot of experience as an executive director of various organizations. You were at the Y for years. You were at the Kettman Center for years. How much of a learning curve did you have to take this job? Was there a learning curve? Did you consider yourself an environmentalist in the years leading up to this? Because that would have helped. But yeah,
well,
I'm very curious.
Always had that inclination. I mean, love being in the outdoors and camping, hiking, being out on the kayaks or canoes or whatever. The technical part of it, not so much. I've been more into administrative stuff and the nonprofit side. I shouldn't even say this when the recording thing's going on over there, but I got into this because I was on the board of the CALC for a year or two before this. Kettman Center was being phased out, and a couple of them came and asked me if I'd consider this new position. And I said, sure, but mostly, my main qualification at the time was I was available, and I had a nonprofit background that helped with nonprofits have similar issues on the administrative side, and my heart has been in that realm for all my career. But I have had a learning curve but mostly I've had great inspiration and leadership from people like Fred Sprague and Steve Cunningham, who were the main culprits and lassoing me here. And Larry Copley and Margot used to be instrumental to this. And those people I just mentioned, holy cow, did they do a lot of stuff on a volunteer basis. I mean, the day-to-day stuff, even with a small organization, is a big load for a volunteer. Especially when you're, retired and wanting to do other stuff or whatnot.
Slow down a little bit.
So yeah. So it's between Norma, our office manager, and myself, we're able to take that load off the volunteers and let them do the stuff they're really interested in. So I can call on them for advice or information or to talk to a landowner about it, and I'm learning from them every day. I learn from our Heart of the Lakes Association, which is the Michigan Association of Land Conservancies. Every county in Michigan is covered by some land conservancy, whether it's a great big one up north like Grand Traverse Regional, or south of us is the Land Conservancy of West Michigan, and we're stuck in the middle of those guys. But there's huge resources available, so that helps. And then we've got a great community here, so when it comes to real estate stuff, I can talk to all kinds of people.
Right.
But it's been a bit of a learning curve that's not going to end. There's always something new. But a lot of it's, nonprofit work is people work, and it's a lot of this is just that. And that's been, it's all about relationships, and we've had a good team over the years that have built really nice outreaches to people, and we're hoping to expand that some more. So,
Chris, if someone out there is kind of looking at their situation and their property, and they want to create a legacy, how do they get a hold of you? What do those conversations look like to just put your toe in the water and see maybe someone's interested in, making their property part of the Conservancy?
Yeah. Well, I would start that by saying a relationship with us might be the best thing for them, we would have a conversation. And if there's something better, there's other programs within the Department of Agriculture that might be better for what they want to do. So we would have kick that around. But basically, they just call us up, shoot us an email, drop us a line, and then I would follow up with them. And if I couldn't give the right information, I'd pull in some people, and we'd just have an initial sit down, talk about it. What's your goals? What would you like to happen? What do you like to see in the future? And we just go from there. Sometimes that's as far as we get. Other times we go a little farther. But the early questions are always, can I still use the land to hunt, or can I walk the trails, or can I timber, cut firewood, or are the public going to be involved? Do they have to have access to this? The answer to that question is no. It's still your property. You're not giving up all your rights. You're just giving up a few. And if you can write a conservation easement to include, I want to keep farming this. I want to keep managing for timber and cutting firewood. I want to still hunt and walk the trails. I want to use my ATV on the trails. And sooner or later we might come up to a headbutting thing where well, that's not whatever that particular thing is that you want to do might not be supporting the values we need to protect. And maybe the conversation ends there. Maybe it moves forward. It just depends on what the owner's goals are, and sometimes we got to together work out just what those are too. But it's a fun process. For somebody like me that gets impatient, I get excited, and then things drag on for a while. But we have a very long window of time with this, and you don't want to rush this stuff, because if you enter into an agreement that doesn't work for either one, it's not good. And so we take time and kick it around, hash it out, and that sort of thing. But it's a neat process that fortunately is codified pretty well, so that if you get to the point where you got to put pencil to the paper, and there's a lot of typical, or a lot of regulations and stuff that go into it. The IRS gets involved. I mean, if you put your land into a conservancy easement or a conservation easement, you're giving up property value. So it's a
sacrifice.
Yeah, right. So that can be translated into a monetary amount before you donate your land or the easement. Your property is worth a level that's a bit higher than it would have been if once you get the easement on it. So there's the difference there, and oftentimes, always got to qualify that. Usually, you can get a tax deduction for that, which is a cash amount that you can take off your taxes. And sometimes that's an incentive that puts you over. Also, your property values probably go down. Not in no cases, but you can have your ongoing property taxes reduced, perhaps, in most cases, a lot of cases, things like that. So, and then also, if your easement, or if you put your property into a conservation easement and then you sell that property, the property taxes are capped, if I'm saying that right. So that,
the transfer tax.
Yeah. So the new owner won't have a higher tax burden.
I see.
So there's, oftentimes that wouldn't happen anyway if it's just a family member. But if it's a secondary buyer or a non-family member buyer, and that's a huge selling point if you're in the mood to sell your property.
Right,
so,
because otherwise it comes uncapped and you're reassessed at the new value.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
that's huge, Chris.
So for the new buyer, sometimes it's a timing thing if it comes out, so whatever. But, we really encourage people, and we don't really come across anybody that's doing it just for the tax benefit.
No.
But that's a big plus. I just worked with a guy who was putting 120 acres in an easement, and he was doing it all for the altruistic reasons. I've been working this land. I want to keep it this way. I don't care about the money. But then he found out what that money would be, and it was significant in his case. So his tax deduction was worthwhile. And,
Sure.
So
it was like a bonus.
Yeah. For that particular case, yes, it was. That's a good way to say it. So anyway, there's a lot of cool things that I learn something new about it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course there's always regulation changes that we got to keep up on and all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, just last year, the government, I don't remember the law number or change, but the conservation easement process was being manipulated by large organizations and to get that tax benefit or whatever tax benefits could go. And there was real concern that the whole easement program from a governmental standpoint might be affected. And so a law got changed so that that's not going to happen, and it's not going to be abused by people that really aren't in it for what it was meant to be. Mm-hmm. So things like that, there's always threats that come up. But we are fortunate to have both the Heart of the Lakes organization and the Land Trust Alliance, the national group, that keep an eye on all that stuff. And for me, that would be great because I can't do it. I'm not, haven't had the experience with all that. But.
I think we've all been around people who love their land, and their land is their life. You get into farmers specifically, but then hunters too, and generations of people farming, generations of people hunting, and it's a huge part of their life. And there's a country song out right now that's like, top. And the lyrics are something like, someone stops by a farmhouse and says, have you considered selling your land? The lyrics go, well, this is where I raise my babies. This is my blood. This is my heart, my soul, pretty much. And so I'm thinking about those folks that, I've got a friend in Osceola County that owns a lot of land, and that's where he finds his peace. And as we age, we start thinking about how to, like you say, some days you're part-time retired, how to find more peace. And when I think about, the George Rocks of the world, like, I bet he felt confident, knowing that his property was going to be preserved because he was a conservationist.
Yes.
And so that probably, gave him a lot of peace.
Right, yeah. Well, and that's taking the heritage. I mean, his family was one of the first to settle in that part of Osceola County. A lot of German heritage in that area. And he was one of them. So
that explains the hat. Do you remember the hat?
Oh, right. Yeah. Good point.
I love it. Well, and I giggle because you had mentioned that you were a board member for Calc and then became the executive director. And we see that with someone who believes in the mission. Is that how that went?
Yeah,
okay.
I guess so. It was, I got involved actually because, we moved over near where I used to live. And Carl T. Johnson's old farmstead was there, and that was a preserve. And, I saw the signs and started thinking about it. And even before that, I'd read their news releases when it was annual meeting time or whatever, and participated in one or two way back in the day just to see what it was about. So there's been kind of a back of my mind interest before I got involved. And then I knew Fred was involved. And few years before I even started, I said, hey, do you need help, board members? Somebody sit in a chair and not have to do much, that kind of thing.
I know you better than that, Chris.
He put in back of his mind, and one that came up, and I joined the board that way. But Carl T's old place was just really nice for us as a family, and then there was some work we did there to help make the trails a little bigger and that kind of stuff. And so, that personal interest hooked me in too, but then to look at the overall scope of things and having been working with the 4-H Foundation at Kedna Center for so long, I had more of a, no, that was a statewide constituency, but having a regional constituency like we do kind of spreads the impact your organization's able to make. And we're such a unique area that we're in. We don't have the big water, or we don't, have some of the different accoutrements that some of the bigger conservancy have, but we have a lot of uniqueness. A lot of our easements are set up to connect public land. So for wildlife corridor stuff, that's pretty big. You can preserve habitats so that wildlife can transfer from one parcel to the next, and it also creates bigger open spaces that you can do. And the family heritage for around here is deep, and to be able to work towards preserving that type of thing, and Wexford not so much. There's some great. I'm thinking about agriculture. Osceola and Misaki have family farms and family businesses that go back way back, and for those that are interested to be able to work to preserve that way of life, it's it's quite an honor, really. And it's hard to not think of that all the time when you're bogged down in this little phrase on this particular piece of paper, or that kind of thing.
Mission control,
yeah,
Chris.
right.
Mission control.
So anyway, it's a unique area that we have, and being able to get involved with that has been something different for me in my own role, and the people you get to work with are
the stories you
wonderful.
hear.
Yeah, I know.
I'll bet.
That's some of the good stuff. That's part of the fun.
You should record all of these people and make a book about this. But I just want to give a shout out one more time. The event is a ribbon cutting for the new bridge at Waldeck Preserve. The Cadillac Area Chamber of Commerce will be on site 10 a.m. on June 8th of 2024 here, so coming up. 10:15 is the ribbon cutting ceremony and comments. At 10:30, there is a scavenger hunt for all ages with prizes. So when you're driving down 115 and you look at Stone Ledge Lake on your right and you see that little island, major improvements have been made by your Cadillac Area Land Conservancy. Our guest has been Chris Gentry, the Executive Director. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Interact with the group at calc, that's calc-landtrust.org, right?
That's right.
All right.
Great.
Join us next week for more local chat. Same time, same station on Cadillac Unscripted, sponsored by Independent Bank on 107.9 CDY.